Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone. For drivers who want to get the most out of their cars, it's Bridgestone or nothing. Dow Automotive Systems, improving durability and increasing design flexibility with Betamate structural adhesives at dowbetamate.com. And by Hyundai. Experience the 2011 Hyundai Sonata today at HyundaiSonata.com.
This is Autoline Daily for July 27, 2011. Daimler and Nissan both reported financial earnings for the most recent quarter this morning, and the numbers look pretty good. Daimler sold just under 450,000 vehicles. Car sales rose 4%, while trucks were up 9%. In the United States, by the way, truck sales at Freightliner were up 50%. All this brought in just over $36 billion in revenue, which was up 5%, and it turned a net profit of almost $2.4 billion, which was up a whopping 30%. Nissan sold just over 1 million vehicles worldwide, up more than 10% in the last 3 months. That brought in just over $25 billion in revenue, which was barely up over last year, and its net profit of $1 billion represented a 10% drop. But considering the effects of the earthquake, these are very impressive numbers, and they suggest the second half of the year will be very good for Nissan. Sergio Marchionne says he's not going to make the same mistake Daimler made when it took over Chrysler and imposed its culture on the company. He says Chrysler is going to retain its American culture, but he also says Chrysler executives are not going to get big pay raises now, even though the company is no longer under government pay restrictions that froze salaries in 2009. That's a smart move. As Chrysler goes into UAW negotiations, that takes one bargaining chip away from the union. Marchionne also says they're not going to make the Jeep Wrangler in China. He says to stay true to its brand image, that iconic Jeep will only be made in America. Another day, another cafe target. The Obama administration has agreed to a lower fuel economy standard. As you'll remember, it initially supported a goal of 56.2 miles per gallon, but now it's pulled back a tiny bit to 54.5 mpgs. Apparently, 5 automakers already support the new standard, including the Detroit 3, plus Honda and Hyundai. But these new numbers leave us with one more question, the biggest of which is, what are the loopholes? Now for some future product news. Wards reports Renault will introduce a small van concept at the Frankfurt Motor Show. Called the Frendzy, it's designed to be a stylish work vehicle Monday through Friday and a family-focused people hauler on the weekends. It's the fourth of a group of 6 concepts that follow an imaginary life cycle. First came the Désir, which represents falling in love. Next, the Captur embodies discovering the world. The R-Space is for having a family, and the Frendzy, as I mentioned, is for working. Closer to home, Hyundai will debut its next-generation Azera at the Los Angeles Auto Show. The Hyundai what? Don't tell me you already forgot about the Azera. It's a large front-wheel drive sedan slotted above the Sonata, but below the Genesis. Does that ring a bell? Think of it as a Korean version of the Toyota Avalon. We've been following this story about women in Saudi Arabia protesting the government's ban on letting women drive by going out and getting behind the wheel themselves. Now, 14 female U.S. senators sent a letter to King Abdullah asking him to end the ban. Also, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spoke out against the policy last month. Saudi Arabia is the only country in the world that prohibits women from driving, even in an emergency. Hey, coming up next, it's time for You Said It.
For drivers who want to get the most out of their cars, it's Bridgestone or nothing.
And now it's time for some of your feedback. Kate McLeod saw our report on a Canadian company that can convert waste plastic into fuel. She asks, does that potentially equal 150 million barrels of fuel if we reused all of our waste plastic? Do I have that right? That's pretty impressive. Okay, I believe you do have that right. Lex saw our report on how the Industrial Transportation Research Institute in Taiwan has come up with paper speakers and asks, John, those paper-thin speakers in the headliner are a great idea for saving weight and space. One thing, how do they sound? Well, Lex, they sound pretty good. They're especially good for listening to news or sports or talk on the radio, but for the best fidelity, they'd have to be paired with a woofer in the car. Steve heard us say that the chances of a battery cell in a hybrid failing are about the same as being hit by lightning, and he says, as much chance as being hit by lightning? My house got hit last night. I now need to replace my well pump. This is the second time I had to replace the pump from a lightning hit in the last 5 years. Could you pick a comparison with a little bit better odds? Okay, the odds of a hybrid battery failing are about as good as the Democrats and Republicans coming together on a deal to balance the budget. Pedro Fernandez liked our power-to-weight comparison of pony cars, but had this to say, in my humble opinion, all these pony cars need to go on a diet. If the tendency to make cars bigger and heavier continues in this segment as well, we may end up calling them hippo cars. Amen, Pedro. Amen. Hey, join us for an all-new live edition of Open Line with Michelle Naranjo and Chelsea Sexton next Tuesday. We'll have Nick Richards, the group manager for Buick Communications. This will be your chance to ask about Buick's e-assist technology and the upcoming Verano. If you can't be there live, leave a message on our Google line at 1-620-288-6546 and make sure you subscribe to the podcast at bit.ly/openpodcast. That's next Tuesday, live at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's today's report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.